Now we're going to start keeping track of our player's position and velocity, as well as our saved game name. When I save, I realize my game name is blank right now. I can reload it, but I won't be able to come back in after I save and reload again because I'm saving off a blank name. So let's dive into the code and adjust both of those things. I think we'll start by, let's just go into the game manager and do the saving first. So when I save my game right here at the beginning, if my game data.game name is empty, so here we actually want to do a if string dot is null or white space, so that way we can get blanks and spaces as well, then we just want to give it a new name. We'll say game data.game name equals, and here I'm just going to call it game, and let's use like a game plus the number of games that we have. So I think we have an all game names, and we'll use dot count. Should we do dot count plus 1? So if we have one game, no, it should be exactly that. So this be the game and a number there. All right, let's go on to our player data now. So our player in its update is going to just store off where it is so that we can keep track of it. And then we'll be able to view that in our game manager. That'll be stored off in the player data class though, where we're storing our coins and health. Let's go add these two things as fields. We'll put a public vector2. And the first one, I want to make sure I get the Unity engine one, not the numerics. Don't want to have a numerics using statement up there, or else we'll have an error later saying that the types don't match. So this first one's going to be position. I'll give it a capital P. I'm going to duplicate that and then make a velocity, velocity. There we go. Then we'll jump back into our player. Now in our player, in the update, right at the end of it, let's just set our player data. So we'll say player data dot position equals, and here we'll get the position from our rigid body, which is a vector 2D, and we'll duplicate that and do the same for our velocity. Let's see. Oh, I spelled velocity wrong. Let's rename that. velocity. I had an extra C in there. All right, we'll save and do a build, and let's try that out in Unity. All right, here we are. You can see I've got a position and velocity, and they're actually updating. I can save my game now, and it shows up as game 3, and I can reload my game, but it doesn't actually keep my position. So now that we're storing off or saving our position, I'm pretty sure we're saving it. We're in that position, we hit save. It should be serializing, right? We need to figure out how to restore it. Let's take a look at our code again. So here's our update where we're setting the data and reading it from our rigid body, putting it into position and velocity on our player data. But where would we restore it? And there are a couple things we could do here. First, if we go down and find our bind method, we could theoretically do it in here. The reason that I don't want to do it in here though, well, it's twofold. One is that bind generally just should be hooking up the data. It shouldn't necessarily be moving objects around and doing more complicated things. I prefer if it just sets up the data and then maybe sets up the initial state. But we're going to keep a very generic binding system, and we're going to extend this out to be even more generic. And I don't want them to have very different implementations for each one. So instead, we'll create another method, and where we call bind, we're going to call this method to restore our position. And one of the key reasons for this, by the way, is imagine that we are restoring the position in our bind method. If we save off our position and then we load into level 2 and then we call bind again on the new player there, we're going to instantly bounce that player back to the position that they were at in level 1. So that could be maybe some random off-screen position or something else, but it's not the position that we wanted to teleport them into. It's not the starting position for that level. So we want to be able to have some tighter control over that. And we could maybe have a parameter in here for do a restore or something, but I think that having a separate method tends to be cleaner. It makes things less complicated as well. So we're going to add a public void restore position and velocity. And that's going to just tell our rigid body to move to its player data position. So we'll say underscore RB dot position equals player data dot position. And then we'll do the same for velocity. In fact, let's just duplicate that and replace position with velocity. I cannot spell velocity. All right, so that should put us back in position. But we're going to need to call it. So let's make sure that we call this from where we're calling our bind. In fact, let's get rid of line 302 here. We got an empty line. Go to references, and we're going to find the one where we bind in our game manager. So not this one in handle player join. Let's find the other call to player.bind. That's when a player joins like our secondary player and comes in later mid game. So after scene load, there we go. We'll say player.restore position and velocity. Now we're not going to restore position and velocity on a second player that joins in the game afterwards. And we'll deal with second players a little bit more later. But for now, we just want to restore the position of this player, the first player when they come back in, or the first player that loads back in. Second player will just appear near that person that's been saved off. All right, we'll save and make sure that we save. Let's go try this in Unity and see what happens. So here we are. Let's run around. I'm going to run right over here by the blue flag. In fact, I'm going to start jumping upwards and hit save. And then let's go over here to the right somewhere. I've got game 4 saved. You can see that's my game name. And I'm going to hit reload. And look at that. I reappear over there, popping up into the air. Now, there is still one problem with this implementation. If we land on this flag, look at that. Look at where I reappeared. I actually reappeared in the exact same spot as where the flag was. We can see that a little bit better if I stop playing. Let's go over here and I'm just going to take this flag. We'll move it up here. We'll save. Well, actually, I didn't save, but that's okay. We'll press play and I'll just run up there and jump on that flag and watch what happens. So come down here. We'll go jump on the flag, and now I appear up here. So I don't want that to happen. I want that position to not restore, just like we talked about. I don't want it to happen every single time we bind. So we're going to go back into the part where we're calling this the restore position and velocity here, and we're only going to do this if we're calling a load game. So if the game is being loaded, then we'll do this. Otherwise, we'll skip it. So we'll say if load, if load game, or no, game manager, can't get my words out, is loading, there we go, then we'll call restore position and velocity. We'll add a Boolean property is loading to our game manager. Oh, look at that. It automatically added a public static bool is loading with a private setter. That's exactly what I wanted, just like my is cinematic playing. Now we're going to scroll down to where we do our load game, and right at the beginning of it, we'll set is loading equal to true. And then when we actually check it, so let's do a search for is loading, there we go. Right afterwards, we'll set is loading to false. Now we're going to use this in one other place. In our players update, let's go find our update method. Where are we? There. So update grounding. Right here at the top of our main update. If we're in this loading state, we don't want to be moving our player around. We don't want to be setting the position and velocity. Right now, it's really fast. It's almost instant. But if we have a larger level and more stuff going on, we don't want to start kicking off actual movement and controlling our player or doing anything like that. We also don't want to be updating the position and velocity. So say if game manager dot is loading, then we'll just return. So it won't do any input or anything like that until we've finished. Now let's go into Unity. We'll go grab our game manager. Let's go select it right here. We can watch our data. We can run around. We can take some damage here. Let's run over here, go grab a couple coins, save our game, jump over here, continue on to the next level. And you can see I'm at the correct spot. I can come over here, take some damage. Let's see if I can find something. Pretty sure I got some spikes over here that can hurt me. There we go. And then we'll reload. And look at that. I'm back here with 5 health. Let's go into the other scene, though, and save our game here and reload. Look at that. We're not saving our scenes. Let's take this as a quick opportunity for a challenge. See if you can figure out how to get the scene to persist. It should be very simple. Just take a look at some of the existing code that we've been looking at recently and maybe one of the arguments and see if you can track it down. Give you just a moment. Go ahead and pause, of course. And let's continue on. I'll show you the solution. So if we go back into that game manager, right here when we load a scene, we get arg0. We can just cache that off in our game data. So we know what level that we're currently in, and then we can reload that level when we load our game. So maybe, let's say, right down in here in any of the parts where we're not loading the actual menu scene, we'll say underscore, and here we want our game data, and we're going to use current level name equals arg0 dot name. We'll generate a field for that. It should just be a nice string. I'll go hit F12 and take a peek at it. We'll go make that public as well. And then we'll go back into our load. So when we do a load game, there we go. We'll figure out our level to load. Instead of loading level 1, we'll load a level based on the game data that we've got here. So I'm going to cut level 1 right here. And we're going to put it, let's say var scene name equals, and we'll say underscore game data dot current scene or current level name, and we need it in actually a string dot is null or white space. Yeah. Then we'll return level 1. Otherwise, we'll return game data dot current level name. There we go. Let's take a look at that logic since I kind of confused myself in my wording. So our scene name is going to be equal to, if the current net level name is set or not set, then it'll be level 1. Otherwise, if it is set, it'll be the current level name. In fact, what we could probably just do here, I think it'd be a little bit cleaner to say if game data dot current level name is, if string dot is null or what's that? If string dot is null or white space current game data dot current level name, then game data dot current level name equals level 1. And then here we'll just pass in game data dot current level name. So it's good to look at the code, refactor it, and clean it up as you're writing it. Make it a little bit easier to understand. So now we should load the correct level. Let's go try that out. All right, here we are. We're going to run across. Actually, let's reload, make sure that we still end up in level 1. Yep. And then we'll run over here, jump on this thing, run off to the right a little bit, save, and reload. And look at that, we're back in level 2. I'm going to cross over to level 1, reload, and I go back to level 2. Things are looking good. It's time to go make a commit that multi-level player position persistence works. And check it in.